Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be swatching a couple of NAILTOPIA polishes for you. So I'm super excited to share this little review because I've had NAILTOPIA in my collection for a couple of years now and I really do love their polishes. So if you aren't familiar, NAILTOPIA is an indie brand that's cruelty-free and vegan and also claim to be all free, which means that they're free from all of the harmful chemicals that are normally found in nail polishes. And their products are also plant sourced. So basically, while maybe 10% of other brands' ingredients are biosourced, meaning they come from like literal potatoes and manioc and whatever, NAILTOPIA's is 85%. So as always, I will have their website linked in the description box if you do want to read a little bit more about them and see their full ingredient list. That will be down below. Also, before I quickly get into the swatches, I do want to point out that yes, these do have two different caps. I believe when they first launched, they had the silver caps, but then a year or two later, they switched over to the white caps, which I believe are made of recycled materials. So there is a slight difference there, not just in the caps, but also in the brush, which we will see during the swatches. And I will share more of my thoughts at the end. For now, let's just get into the swatches. The first shade we have is Nails and Tiaras, and this is a pretty true rose gold kind of metallic shade. Sometimes rose gold can lean a little too coppery or bronzy, but this is definitely very pink leaning, which I do really like. And what I like even more is this formula. It is easily opaque in one coat. It might be a little brushstrokey, but it's not so bad. But yeah, I actually really like how this looks. I feel like there's such a beautiful glow to it. Next up we have That's Hot, and it's this really bright fuchsia cream polish. So I'm not sure if you were able to tell, but this one has a silver cap. So this is the older packaging, which features a slightly thinner but still flat brush compared to the newer packaging in the white caps. But either way, this one still gave me one coat coverage. So I love this shade. Up next we have Hustle Hard, and this one is a very bright red leaning pink coral kind of color. It's definitely kind of one of those shades that's a little hard to describe, but yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. This one features that silver cap again, so it is that slightly thinner brush, and it gave me really great coverage on the first coat. Not exactly a one coater like the last shade, but this I would say is pretty typical of NAILTOPIA's formulas across the board, where it's very creamy, very full coverage, and easily opaque in two coats. So I really love this shade. I think it's so beautiful for the summertime. The next polish we have is Morning Mimosa, and this is a very bright red-orange cream. Or I wouldn't call it really a cream, it's a little bit more on the crully side, but this one is in the newer packaging, so you can see the width of the brush is a lot wider and covers more of my nail. But yeah, my brush in this one is a little bit wonky, so I didn't struggle too much with it, thankfully, but yeah, the formula is a little bit thinner on this, as I mentioned, because it is slightly more crully-ish. So even after two coats, I didn't get it fully opaque. I would say it's like 85, 87% there, and it's opaque enough for me. I would not mind wearing this in two coats. But here's a quick comparison between Morning Mimosa and Hustle Hard, where one is a red-orange and the other one's red-pink. Next up we have Main Squeeze, and this is a very bright and juicy orange cream, or this one's also a little bit on the crully side too, actually, but you may have seen me swatch this in my recent orange favorites video. I just love bright oranges like this, especially for the summertime. It just reminds me of fresh oranges and freshly squeezed orange juice. It's just so yummy to me. So even though this one does have a crully formula like the last shade, I found it to be a little bit more opaque on two coats, so I don't think you would need a third for this one. The next polish we have is Glow Up, and this one I would call a pretty bright marigold kind of yellow. I think it's picking up a little bit brighter or more like a primary yellow here on camera, but in real life it's just a little bit deeper and muted, but just slightly. Either way, this one has a lovely formula for being a yellow. Here on the first coat, I get really nice coverage for the most part, very little streakiness or patchiness. So this one for me was opaque in 2 coats, and I don't think you would need a 3rd coat, maybe if your nails were longer than mine, but if your nails are shorter, I think this would be a solid 2-coat yellow, and it is just so beautiful for summer. Next up, we have Jamaican Me Crazy, and I would call this more like an avocado green cream that's a little bit chartreusey. I think on camera it's picking up very bright and almost like a lime green, so in real life it is a little bit more muted, but either way, I actually still really like this shade. I mean, as you probably know, I love bright greens like this for the summertime, and this one is just no exception. So this one does have the newer cap and brush, so it is a little bit thicker, and I did kind of overload the brush with polish, especially on the first coat, but it did still self-level really nicely, and I got it opaque in 2 coats. But yeah, you just have to be careful with your application with these white caps. The next polish we have is Trust the Process, and I would describe this one as a pastel seafoamy aqua. I think this one is so pretty. This one is also from the old line with the silver caps, so as you can see, the formula is such a dream. I feel like generally the older line with the silver caps just have a slightly better formula. It could also be the brush that just makes it easier to apply, but yeah, I got really great coverage on the first coat for being such a light shade. I wouldn't call it a 1-coater, but this is one of those shades that's just easily opaque in 2 coats, and it is so pretty. I really like this. I think normally I would kind of consider this a spring shade, but I feel like it can work so nicely in the summertime too. But if you're looking for a brighter aqua shade, we have Love That For You. And this one, oh my gosh, it's like one of my favorites from this whole lineup that I have. This one is in the newer line, so again, not crazy about this brush, but it does give me really great coverage on the first coat, and again, it self-levels really nicely, so this was easily opaque for me in just 2 coats. But yeah, the color is just so beautiful. I feel like it reminds me of a beautiful mix between bright turquoise waters, but then also like a robin's egg blue kind of shade. I think it's just so pretty. And to go one step deeper, we have Into the Wild, which is a darker, almost dusty aqua blue cream. This one I think is so beautiful. I just love these kinds of shades that are dark but still very vibrant at the same time. I will say though, I think it is picking up a little bit brighter here on camera. It is more dusty in real life, but it's still really pretty. Formula wise, this one was opaque in just 2 coats, but this one had the best brush in the white caps that we've seen this whole swatch video. So I was really impressed by that. The next polish is Nailor's Knot, and I think I would describe this as a dusty cobalt blue. I feel like you know exactly what kind of blue this is, but I just don't know how to describe it. So either way, it is just absolutely beautiful. The formula on this one was really nice, but maybe a little bit on the crelly side. So I did have a few more patchy light spots here and there, but it was fully opaque for me in just 2 coats. So again, very similar to the rest of the Nailtopia shades. But yeah, the main takeaway for this one, I think, is the color. It is just so beautiful. Again, I think it is picking up a little bit brighter on camera. There is that dustiness to it in real life, but it's still so pretty. And the last shade I have is Slay All Day, which is this absolutely beautiful and vibrant cobalt blue. So this one is a little bit on the crelly side again, similar to the last blue, but I, for whatever reason, feel like it wanted to perform like a jelly because it started to pull away at my tips, and I've only had jellies do that before, so that was a little weird. But as you can see, I have really great full coverage even on the first coat, so this was easily opaque in 2 coats. I don't think you would need a third, especially if you have shorter nails. But yeah, the color is absolutely gorgeous. It's just such a striking shade of blue. Again, I do think it is picking up a little bit brighter. It's just a little bit more dusty in real life, but still beautiful. And that wraps up my swatches for the Nailtopia shades in my collection. So I know the majority of these were cream finishes. I know a few of them were actually kind of on the crelly side, but I only had the one metallic, and that's because that's the only one I ended up keeping. I had a pretty sizable Nailtopia collection before that included a ton of their shimmers and glittery kind of shades and a few other metallics. But to be honest, I just didn't find myself reaching for them as often as I would reach for these creams. So I ended up destashing them, but it was just based off of color preference, I guess. It had nothing to do with the formulas on those. So just as a disclaimer, I guess I would say that overall the formulas across the board, even into those non-cream finishes, were also really nice. But yeah, I just have a preference towards their cream finishes. But yeah, overall, I really love Nailtopia. I just especially love their wide color selection for their creams. I just think they're so pretty. But their formulas are fantastic. They all applied really well and smooth and buttery and weren't like dragging or patchy or anything like that. So overall, very solid formulas. And I also really appreciate how affordable they are too, because they are $10 and their bottles are 12 milliliters. So pretty comparable to a couple of other brands, I would say, if not better. But yeah, my main gripe with these really does come down to the brushes, and more specifically with the new brushes, because I'm sure they're meant to be seen as an upgrade, especially considering they're made from recycled materials. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that and value when brands try to be as eco-friendly as possible with their materials. But I can't help but feel like the new brush is a bit of a downgrade compared to the brushes in the original silver capped polishes, because those silver cap brushes were very consistently good across the board, while the white capped ones were just a lot more inconsistent. Like, they generally were too dense and just almost too wide, so they held a lot of polish on the brush, which would lead to like messier application if you're not careful to wipe off more than you're used to. And I really only had a good experience with Into the Wild, which I feel like had the best quality brush, where it wasn't like super fluffy or wonky at all. So it is a little bit of a shame that I feel like the quality just is a lot more inconsistent with these newer brushes compared to the older brushes. So I think for that reason, I would recommend maybe leaning more towards the silver capped polishes. But I mean, obviously, I still like the white capped shades. It's just the brush that you need to be like a little bit more mindful of with your application. So yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think of Nailtopia. Are they a brand that you're interested to try? Or let me know if you have tried them before, because again, I do think they are great and worth checking out overall. But let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.